Ms. Tullis.
Hello, my name's Jeanette Tullis, and I am a parent, also a private tutor, and I'm a lifetime lover of history, especially American history. When I was a little girl, I used to beg my mom when she went to rummage sales to bring home every history textbook she could find, because I just really, really enjoyed reading them. And today, I still enjoy history very much. I enjoy teaching history, reading history books, and seeing children have a love of history. So it's very disheartening and concerning and disconcerting to see how the script in the EL education book tells the teachers to instruct their students to view the Declaration of Independence. Oh, I have to correct something. I know that it said that I was going to talk about the incomplete revolution, but I'm instead talking about the lesson on the Declaration of Independence. This is in the 4th grade EL education book on the American Revolution. So again, I'm speaking on how the Declaration of Independence was viewed. So it is not viewed as a document in which brave, freedom-loving men declare their independence from a colonial power that viewed them as a way to pay off their debts via heavy oppressive taxation of the colonies. But instead, in this book, which we're using today, the Declaration of Independence is viewed as a foundation for racism. The Declaration of Independence was a document which started with a wonderfully articulate preamble, which was a vision of freedom, and then it listed the grievances the colonists had against the Crown, who was, of course, King George III. Now, when I taught the Declaration of Independence to my students, I emphasized the courage of the signers who knew the danger into which they were placing themselves, their families, and those who valued freedom from tyranny over their own personal safety. We need to remind ourselves of this kind of courage in these times in which we live. But EL education, which is very upfront, as someone just said, about their goals, on their own website, they're very upfront about it. They use the now familiar language of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which are pretty much known euphemisms for critical race theory, which is racist in its core, Marxist in its origins, and seeks to divide, to create mistrust, to create classes of Americans where one is the oppressed and one is the oppressor. And this book takes a completely different approach to the Declaration of Independence. They create an entire unit based on the last of the 27 grievances of the colonists against the Crown. Here's how the grievance reads in the actual Declaration of Independence. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. So in this document, the signers were pointing out that the British Crown and its representatives were encouraging, using money, whiskey, land protection, other inducements, the Native Americans to attack the colonists. The signers were saying that the British knew how the Indians fought and that their rules of engagement were, of the Native and North American Indians, was that they attacked men and women and children, and the British were exploiting this pagan cruelty to harass and massacre the colonists, especially those at the outposts. So it's very sad to me that the script that teachers are given when they explain this part of the Declaration of Independence, that they are blaming the signers of the Declaration for the mistreatment of the Indians in future years in American history. Did the Americans treat the Indians fairly? No, they did not. But was this because of what was written in the Declaration of Independence? No, it was not. But that's what this material teaches. So the text that the teacher reads, and this is directly from the instructions what the teacher should say. How would you say, propelled into action in your own words? And from this, what can you infer about the treatment of the American Indians? And the correct answer is, they were probably treated badly because the people thought it was fair to do so as a result of what the Declaration of Independence said. I mean, that is just not at all what was intended in this document. So from what the Declaration of Independence said, the colonists saw the Native American as a victim of British exploitation. There's no evidence the Declaration of Independence was a foundation for later mistreatment. To allege this is a terrible twisting of the truth, to attempt to make our students, our American students, view their founding document as an instrument of racism against Native Americans. Why would a curriculum company do such a thing? Only because they have an agenda, which they're very upfront about, a set of presuppositions in which they must fit their facts to the predetermined assumption that our founding fathers were racist. So this may be insignificant.
That's your time.
Oh, thank you. Just do what you can to find a different curriculum. Thank you.